The rain came down hard that night, drumming against the cracked windows of a tiny apartment in the back streets of Naples. Eliana Costa, 19, sat by the window with her arms wrapped around her knees, watching the blurred city lights. She worked double shifts at a flower shop and cleaned tables at a cafe by midnight. Life wasn't kind to her, but she had learned to smile through exhaustion. She didn't know that somewhere across the city, the most feared man in Italy had just spoken her name, by mistake. A black SUV rolled through the narrow alleys of the old quarter. Inside, 3 men in tailored suits checked a photograph. "This is her?" one asked. The driver nodded. "Boss," said the girl in the blue raincoat, "apartment 3C. Grab her, no mistakes." They stormed the building quietly, boots echoing on marble stairs slick with rain. Eliana had just pulled on her old coat and stepped out, humming softly. The hallway light flickered. She froze when she saw the men. "Scusi," she began. A cloth smothered her words, her vision swam, the scent of chemicals flooded her senses, and the world went black. When she woke, she wasn't in her apartment anymore. The air smelled of leather, smoke, and perfume. Velvet curtains, marble floors, gold chandeliers, luxury that didn't belong to her world. Her wrists were bound loosely, as if whoever had tied them didn't want to hurt her. Just keep her still. A voice spoke from the shadows, low, cold, magnetic. "So this is her?" Eliana turned her head. Her heart stopped. The man who stepped forward was Lorenzo Vitale, head of the Vitale Syndicate, the most feared Mafia family in southern Italy. His presence filled the room. Sharp suit, dark eyes. A scar traced his jawline like a silent warning. "Yes, boss," said one of the men. "Picked her up just like you said. Blue coat, apartment 3C. Lorenzo's expression darkened. "That's not her." Silence. The men froze. The boss's tone was deathly calm, but his eyes were fire. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a different photo, and held it up. "This," he said, "is Alessia Romano, the judge's daughter, the one who stole my ledger. This," he glanced at Eliana, "is not her." The men turned pale. "Boss, we—" Lorenzo raised a hand. "Out." They scattered instantly. Now only Eliana and the Mafia boss remained. She trembled, staring at him. "But please," she whispered, "I don't know who you think I am." He cut her off with a gesture. "You're not the one I wanted. That makes you unlucky." Eliana swallowed hard, fear tightening her chest. "Then let me go." Lorenzo studied her face for a long moment. There was something about her, something unguarded, unpolished. A quiet strength in her eyes that didn't belong to the frightened world he ruled. "What's your name?" he asked finally. "Eliana Costa." He leaned back in his chair, exhaling smoke from his cigarette. "Eliana," he repeated softly, tasting the name like a memory. "You work at the flower shop near the harbor?" Her eyes widened. How do you—" "I know everything in this city," he said simply, "even about the people who don't matter." The words stung, but she stayed silent. Then Lorenzo stood, walked around the desk, and stopped inches from her. "You were not meant to be taken," he said, voice low. "But now that you're here—" His eyes softened, just barely. "I can't send you back. Not yet." "Why not?" she whispered. "Because my enemies think you are Alessia Romano," he said. "And if I release you now, they'll kill you before sunrise." Her heart raced. "So, I'm your prisoner?" He met her gaze, unreadable. "No," he said after a pause. "You're under my protection." Eliana's breath caught. Protection. From the very man who had kidnapped her. Lorenzo turned to the window, rain streaking down the glass. "I'll find the real Alessia soon," he said quietly. "Until then, you stay here. My men will guard you. You don't leave this house." She wanted to scream, to run, but something in his voice stopped her. It wasn't cruelty. It was control wrapped around concern, danger threaded with something almost human. As he walked away, Eliana whispered, "I don't belong here." He stopped at the door. Without looking back, he said, "You do now." The door shut softly behind him, leaving her alone in a world of silk and shadows. Outside, thunder rolled over the city. Somewhere in the distance, the real Alessia Romano ran for her life, while an innocent girl, taken by mistake, was about to change the destiny of the most powerful man in Italy. For the first time in years, Lorenzo Vitale felt something shift inside him. He had stolen 100 things in his life: money, secrets, power. But this time, fate had stolen something for him. And she had a name, Eliana Costa. The morning light poured through the tall glass windows of the Vitale estate, gilding the marble floors with gold. Eliana blinked against it as she awoke in a room far too beautiful to belong to her world. The silk sheets felt strange under her fingers, soft, cold, foreign. She sat up, dazed, her reflection staring back from a gilded mirror. She looked small, fragile, out of place. A knock came at the door. Before she could answer, a young woman entered, holding a tray. She wore black and white, with her hair tied neatly. "Good morning, Signorina," she said in a warm voice. "I'm Rosa. I'll be taking care of you." Eliana's throat was dry. "Where am I?" Rosa hesitated. "You're in the Vitali residence, Naples, the Mafia house," Eliana whispered, heart thudding. Rosa lowered her eyes but didn't deny it. "You're safe here," she said softly, "but please don't try to leave." "I was kidnapped," Eliana murmured, "by mistake." Rosa looked at her, sympathy flickering across her face. "Mistake or not, you're still alive. Many who cross the boss aren't." The words sent a chill down Eliana's spine. Hours passed slowly. She wandered the grand halls, her footsteps echoing against marble. Every corner was guarded, men in suits with expressionless faces and hidden pistols. The mansion was a palace built on silence and fear. Then, through a half-open door, she heard voices. "You're telling me we grabbed the wrong girl, Marco?" Lorenzo's tone was cold but calm. "Yes, boss," said the guard. "We've confirmed it. The real Alessia Romano escaped to Milan. She's under police protection." A long pause. Then Lorenzo's voice dropped lower. "And this Eliana Costa, what does she know?" "Nothing, sir. Just a poor shop girl. Lives alone. No family left." Silence again. Then Lorenzo spoke words that made Eliana's heart pound. "Then she stays. For now." Eliana pressed her hand to her mouth and backed away quietly, her heart aching. For now. She didn't know what that meant, but it didn't sound like freedom. That evening, Rosa brought her to dinner. The dining hall was enormous, chandeliers like constellations, a table long enough for a dozen kings. At the far end sat Lorenzo Vitali, alone. "Sit," he said. Eliana hesitated but obeyed. He poured himself wine, studying her across the table. "You're not eating?" She looked down at the food. It was rich, fragrant, but her appetite was gone. "I don't belong here." He tilted his head. "You've said that before, because it's true." He smirked faintly, swirling his wine. "No one belongs anywhere until fate puts them there." "Is that how you justify this?" she asked quietly. "Kidnapping an innocent girl?" For a moment the mask slipped. His expression hardened, but then softened again. "I didn't order them to take you, but I won't apologize for keeping you alive. My enemies think you are someone else. If you step outside this house, they'll kill you." "And what happens when they find the real one?" she asked. "Do you just throw me out like trash?" His gaze sharpened. "You think I'm a monster?" "I think you enjoy control," she said, surprising even herself with her courage. A long silence hung between them. Then Lorenzo leaned back and said quietly, "I used to believe control was everything, until I lost it once." Eliana looked up. There was something in his voice, pain, not pride. He continued, eyes distant. "Years ago, I had a sister, Sophia, gentle, naive. She trusted the wrong man, a rival from another family. When I found out, it was too late. They used her to destroy us. I built walls after that. No mistakes, no trust." Eliana's anger faltered. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "Don't be," he murmured. "Just don't think this world forgives softness." For a moment, they were silent, two broken souls on opposite sides of the same war. After dinner, Lorenzo walked her back to her room. At the door she paused. "Why are you telling me this?" He looked at her for a long time. "Because you look at me like I'm still human," he said quietly. "No one else does." The door shut softly between them. That night, Eliana couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, trying to make sense of the strange ache in her chest. She was supposed to hate him, but behind his iron mask she had glimpsed something, grief, guilt, and the faintest spark of humanity. Days turned into a quiet rhythm. Lorenzo's men stopped treating her like a hostage. Rosa taught her Italian etiquette. One of the guards brought her books. Slowly, her fear began to dull. Then one evening, while Lorenzo was on a call, she stepped onto the balcony and overheard fragments of his conversation. "Find the girl before Romano does," he said coldly. "If he gets that ledger, the entire South falls into blood." Eliana's pulse quickened. The ledger. The reason she was here. She turned away quietly, but her foot caught on the edge of a vase, sending it crashing to the floor. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Lorenzo turned sharply. Their eyes met, hers wide with guilt, his filled with suspicion. "What did you hear?" he demanded. "Nothing," she stammered. He approached slowly. "Don't lie to me." She stood her ground this time. "You think everyone's a liar because you are," she said, trembling. For a long moment, neither moved. Then, to her shock, he laughed, a deep, quiet laugh she hadn't heard before. "You have fire," he said. "No one in this house dares to look me in the eye like that." "Maybe they should," she replied softly. Lorenzo's smile faded. He turned to the balcony rail, gazing out at the city lights. "Maybe," he said almost to himself. "But fire burns, Eliana. And you don't yet know what it costs." As the night wind swept through the balcony, something unspoken passed between them, a fragile thread of connection neither could explain. And though Eliana didn't yet know it, the girl who didn't belong was about to become the only person who truly did. The storm returned to Naples that night, lightning flashing like a warning across the sea. The wind howled against the windows of the Vitale mansion as Eliana sat by the fire, staring into the flames. Her thoughts were chaos. She was no longer terrified of Lorenzo, but she didn't understand him either. The monster everyone whispered about had saved her life, protected her, even confided in her. Yet, beneath his calm voice and expensive suits, she sensed something else, a darkness that wasn't just in his world, but in his heart. Her eyes drifted to the door that led to his private study. She had seen the guards leave an hour ago. Rosa had gone to bed, the mansion was quiet, and curiosity, that dangerous spark, took hold. Eliana stood and crept down the hallway, her bare feet silent on the marble floor. The door to the study was slightly ajar. She slipped inside. The room smelled of whiskey and cedar. Books lined the walls, volumes of law, finance and history. But on the mahogany desk lay something else, a small black notebook bound with leather. The initials LV were carved into the cover. The ledger, her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were pages filled with names, numbers and symbols she didn't understand, but the last page made her blood run cold. Romano family transactions, offshore accounts, political payoffs. It wasn't just criminal evidence, it was enough to destroy half of Italy's elite. Then came a voice, low and steady behind her. "I was wondering how long it would take you to find that—" Eliana froze. Slowly she turned. Lorenzo stood in the doorway, wearing a black shirt unbuttoned at the collar, his expression unreadable. She began, but he raised a hand. "Put it down." She obeyed, placing the ledger back on the desk. He walked toward her slowly, the sound of his shoes sharp against the marble. "You think I'm some crude criminal, don't you?" he asked. "That this book holds all my sins?" Eliana swallowed hard. "It looks like it does." He stopped inches from her, eyes dark. "Then you should know the truth." He opened the ledger and flipped to a page marked with a silver clip. "These are not my crimes," he said quietly. "They're theirs. Judges, politicians, bankers, the Romano family, your so-called law enforcers." Eliana frowned. "Then why keep it?" "Because information is power," he said, "and power is the only way to survive men like them." He closed the book softly. "You think I wanted this life, Eliana? I inherited it. Every favor, every debt, every corpse. My father built an empire of fear, and when he died, I was expected to rule it or be buried by it." Eliana's anger faltered. "Then leave it behind. You could—" "Leave?" He laughed bitterly. "You don't walk away from blood." Silence filled the room except for the storm outside. Then his tone changed, softer, almost pleading. "Do you believe I'm beyond saving, Eliana?" Her breath caught. The question wasn't a challenge, it was a confession. "No," she whispered, "but you have to want it." He stared at her for a long time, something shifting behind his eyes. "You're the first person to ever say that to me." The tension hung heavy between them, charged and fragile. Suddenly, the mansion lights flickered. A guard burst through the door, out of breath. "Boss, we've got trouble." Romano's men breached the east gate. "They're here for the girl." Eliana's heart seized. Lorenzo turned sharply. "How many?" "At least a dozen. Armed, get her to the cellar," Lorenzo ordered. "No," Eliana said, stepping forward. "They're after me. I'll go," he snapped. "You'll do what I say." His voice thundered through the room, but his eyes betrayed fear, not for himself, but for her. He grabbed her wrist and pulled her toward a hidden passage behind a bookshelf. "Stay here until I come back," he said. She shook her head. "You'll get killed." "I've survived worse," he said, managing a faint smile. "Now go." Before she could protest, he shut the panel behind her. The sound of gunfire erupted above, shouts, shattering glass. Eliana crouched in the darkness, trembling. The seconds stretched like hours. She pressed her ear to the door, hearing chaos, the bark of orders, the thud of boots, the scream of steel, then silence. Her heart hammered. She pushed the panel open just enough to see. The study was wrecked, smoke, blood, broken glass, and on the floor near the desk, Lorenzo lay on his side, clutching his shoulder. "Lorenzo," she gasped, rushing to him. He winced as she helped him sit up. "I told you to stay hidden. I don't take orders," she whispered fiercely. He gave a breathless laugh that turned into a cough. "You really don't." She tore a strip from her dress and pressed it against his wound. He gritted his teeth but didn't pull away. "They wanted the ledger," he said between breaths. "But they won't get it." "Then give it to the police," she urged. "End this." He looked at her, eyes dark with pain and pride. "You think justice lives in that book? The police, the courts, they're all in it. There's no clean hand left in this city." Her throat tightened. "Then why fight?" "Because someone has to," he said quietly. "Even monsters can protect the innocent." Tears burned her eyes. "You're not a monster, Lorenzo." He looked at her for a long time. "Then what am I?" She met his gaze. A man trying to remember what his soul felt like. Something in his chest cracked open then, something he'd buried under years of blood and control. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. The storm had drawn the police. He stood with effort, gripping her hand. "If they come, say nothing. Not my name, not yours. Understand?" She nodded, tears streaming down her face. As he limped toward the door, she whispered, "Why are you doing this?" He paused, turning slightly, his voice barely audible. "Because you were never supposed to be mine, Eliana. But now I can't imagine letting you go." Then he disappeared into the smoke. The girl who had been kidnapped by mistake realized the mistake was fate itself, because somehow she now belonged to a man who didn't know how to love. Until her. The sky over Naples was bruised grey when Eliana awoke in a hospital room. The scent of antiseptic filled the air, mingling with the soft beeping of a heart monitor. For a moment she thought it was all a nightmare, the kidnapping, the mansion, the gunfire. But when she turned her head and saw Rosa sitting in the corner, eyes red from crying, she knew it was real. Rosa stood quickly. "You're awake," she whispered, voice trembling. "Thank God." Eliana struggled to sit up, pain lacing her body. "Where's Lorenzo?" Rosa hesitated. "He's gone." The words hit like a knife. "Gone," Eliana repeated. "What do you mean, gone?" "He turned himself in," Rosa said quietly. "After the shooting, the police surrounded the estate. They wanted the ledger, and you. He gave them neither. Instead, he made a deal. He handed over certain files, exposed Romano's network, and took all the blame himself." Eliana's breath caught. "No, he wouldn't." "He did," Rosa whispered. "To keep you safe." Tears blurred Eliana's vision. "Where is he now?" "Locked away. High-security prison outside Milan. He won't see anyone." For a long time, Eliana said nothing. She stared at the rain streaking down the window, the same storm that had started it all. He had taken her life, and then, somehow, given her back a better one. Over the following weeks, the news spread across Italy. Mafia boss Lorenzo Vitale exposes corruption ring, brings down Romano family. The media called him a fallen devil. The government praised the anonymous informant who had tipped them off. Eliana knew who that was. But none of it mattered, not when the man who'd saved her was locked behind bars. One afternoon she packed a small bag and took the first train north. Rosa tried to stop her, but Eliana just smiled faintly. "You can't stop someone who's already lost everything," she said. The journey to Milan was long. Snow fell outside, blanketing the countryside in white silence. Eliana pressed her forehead against the glass, remembering his words. "You do now." Hours later she arrived at the prison. It loomed like a fortress of steel and sorrow. The guard eyed her warily. "Who are you here to see?" "Eliana Costa," she said softly. "I'm here for Lorenzo Vitale." The man hesitated, then nodded toward a small interview room. "You have 10 minutes." She sat at the cold metal table, heart hammering. The door opened, and Lorenzo walked in, thinner, paler, dressed in grey. The scar on his jaw looked sharper against the prison lights, but his eyes were still the same. He stopped when he saw her. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he said quietly, "You shouldn't have come." Eliana stood, tears already filling her eyes. "You gave me back my life. Did you really think I'd let you disappear?" He sat down slowly, hands chained. "If they know who you are, you'll be in danger again." "Let them come," she said. "I'm not afraid anymore." He smiled faintly, a trace of the man she'd known behind those walls of stone. "You've changed. You changed me," she said softly. They sat in silence, the hum of the fluorescent lights filling the air. "I heard about what you did," she said after a moment. "You turned over the ledger." "I had to," he said simply. "You were right, Eliana. Justice has to start somewhere. Even in hell, you didn't deserve this," she whispered. He chuckled dryly. "Maybe I did. Maybe this is the only way I pay for everything I've done." Her voice broke. "You're not that man anymore." His gaze softened. "Maybe not. But the world needs me to be." Eliana reached across the table, her hand brushing against his. The guard looked up but didn't stop her. "I don't care what the world thinks," she said. "You once told me I belong to you. But the truth is, you belong to me too." For the first time he looked away, not because he was cold, but because he couldn't bear the weight of what he felt. "Eliana," he said quietly, "I can't give you a future." She smiled through her tears. "Then give me this moment." He hesitated, then leaned forward. Their foreheads touched through the cold glass partition separating them. For a heartbeat, the world outside that room ceased to exist. When the guard signaled the end of visiting hours, Eliana rose slowly. "I'll come back," she promised. Lorenzo shook his head. "You should forget me," she smiled sadly. "You forget monsters, not men who taught you how to see their hearts." As she turned to leave, he said softly, "Eliana." She looked back. His eyes were glassy, voice rough. "You were never a mistake." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Neither were you." She walked out into the falling snow, the prison lights fading behind her. The cold air bit her skin, but inside, something warm burned steady, a strange peace born from pain, love, and loss. Months later, she reopened the flower shop. People whispered about the girl who had once been taken by the Mafia and returned with a secret no one could name. Every morning she placed a single white rose in the window, a symbol of forgiveness and a promise kept. And far away, in a grey cell overlooking the mountains, Lorenzo Vitali watched the same snow fall outside his narrow window. A small, secret smile touched his lips as he whispered to himself, "She belongs to no one now. Not even me." But deep down, he knew the truth. Love had stolen him the same way fate had stolen her. Not by force, by destiny.